Let's talk about the Queensland poll, because I know you've been up there, Cam. Shocking polls today. The Courier Mail exit poll, we've got early voting underway, obviously, says that there's a 48% primary vote. Gee whiz, almost 50 for David Crisafulli. There's a swing against Labor around 10%. That's uniform. It'll be higher in some seats. They're down on 30 in terms of their primary. And it comes to Stephen Miles and his self-described mentor, a Queensland Labor union boss, Gary Bullock, have been reported to have been in secret discussions for taxpayers to fund a $20 million state-of-the-art hospitality training centre jointly run by Bullock's union. As I said, you've been on the ground. Lots of spending largesse, school lunches, free 50-cent transport. What's the sense on the ground? What are you hearing?
Yeah, there's a real sense of disconnect, I've got to say, Peter. When we did the lap of Queensland over the last 10 days, up in Cairns and Townsville and Rockhampton, out to Longreach for a day or so, and everywhere we went, I've got to say, there was a feeling that Labor's headed for oblivion here, and that was regardless of pretty much who you spoke to. And we spoke to voters, just regular people in every one of those towns. Some of them are Labor seats for more than a century, the likes of Rockhampton and Mackay. And even there, the two issues, I've got to say, that cut through, one was crime everywhere we went. It's no surprise why that's been the core of the LNP's campaign. Crime is the number one issue by the length of the straight. The other one that I've got to say has been cutting through is the 50-cent fares. And I wonder if part of the reason the LNP is backing that, despite the cost of that program, is it's just so popular that it would be almost too popular to risk romping it in at an election to fight that pledge. So ultimately, you've got a lot of that underspending that the LNP likely won't have to keep up with. Free lunches, for example, is a good example there. But I wonder with 50-cent fares, have they just thought, right, that's a cost we're just going to have to cop because we don't really want to open up a new political battlefront that might see Labor back in the race. You mentioned those numbers today, Peter. That puts Labor not on the back foot, but well into opposition for several terms. And unless you see a Campbell-Newman style flip back in a few years' time, it should be multiple terms of an LNP government come next weekend.
Let's go to aged care, Trudy, because there was the deal done between the Coalition and Labor. And this could be a sleeper, I think, during the campaign. A lot of people are concerned. There's grandfathering of these new increases if you are currently in care. But if you're looking towards retirement, you'll be impacted by some pretty big changes. But the sector, the providers of aged care services have come out to say, this is 70% of them saying, we think these are being rushed. 84% of the sector say, we think it's going to put huge strain on an already strained industry. And a lot of them were worried about, can they provide the increased costs of care? And they can't get the staff. We know that there are all those changes by Labor in terms of registered nurses on deck 24 hours. They're struggling to meet those new requirements. This is a worry.
And as well, Peter, the big question mark to me here is whether this actually passes before we get to the election. The Senate is a Senate committee looking into the intricate details of this aged care shake-up. As you say, there's that top-line agreement between the Prime Minister and opposition leader to get this through. But I detected a lot of disquiet really amongst many Nationals MPs. They're concerned about the impact these changes have on their area. So fascinating to see on the other side of that Senate committee report whether there is division within the coalition and pressure on Peter Dutton to make serious changes to what Labor's put forward. And the clock is ticking. There's just 3 weeks, I think, of Parliament left for the year, and there's a chance we don't go back to Parliament next year before the PM goes to the polls. So we may actually still be in limbo before the next election, and people in the sector still will face uncertainty as to what's going to be changing.
And Labor desperately need the grey vote to come back to them in some way if they're going to hold on to power.